Welcome to the movement. My name's Grant Tulloch, and this is Tully Vision. Colours to awareness. The truthful situation of the world is being ignored by 90% of the people. The evil playing out is too much to comprehend, and we've only just scratched the surface. There is an invisible mind virus that is spreading across Western society that can be now extinguished. We have a chance to break free of it in a way that can transcend our current reality by tenfold, if we so choose it. The beginning of my journey came from shared disappointment, the realisation you can no longer communicate with the person you married. I jumped headfirst into my greatest desire, to have a family and be a father in loving communion. Yet when this dream of happiness was ending, so was my 20-year career as an electrician in the coal mining industry, where I was also paid as a cartoonist to raise awareness in workplace safety. After many years of working on our marriage, I recall going to bed knowing I could no longer give any more to the relationship. In the early hours of deep REM sleep, I dreamt I was on a cruise ship and jumped overboard into a life raft that simply disappeared. As I drifted down into the ocean, I recall thinking, I've heard drowning is a good way to go. As I released into the depths of the ocean, I was confronted by my death. Suddenly a wall of golden light engulfed my entire being with an energy that literally shocked me out of bed, revived and shocked back into my body. It was as if this energy carried an intelligence outside the human condition, an energy that gave boundless possibilities and connection to all that is, inspiring a vision beyond my current reality. As my wife and 3 children moved 7 hours away to begin a new life, I realised that any communication within this drama would only produce the same conflict and contradiction that could destroy the potential of my 3 greatest loves. After visiting their new home 7 hours up the coast, I reluctantly reversed out their driveway, looking straight back at my 6-year-old daughter's face smiling in the rearview mirror. In her mind, she was coming home with me, and the thought of taking her back to her mum broke me in two. I'd gone from a fully committed, loving dad to letting go of the 3 of the most beautiful beings a father could ever hope for. Something within me, however, was determined to turn this tragedy into something meaningful, by using my cartoons to help young ones know themselves in order to avoid any further psychological disorders into adulthood. After 3 years of studying anything from modern psychology to ancient Gnosticism, I recall one night as I read the Gnostic Gospels, it was as if by destiny the words, "Rise above the herd," spoke directly to me. I began drawing the idea of standing up as Christ did, from outside a herd-following culture, as I stood above its narrative, yet connected with it in the herd. If I was to rise above the herd, I would need to stand up and see above my old story. John 17:11, to be in the world and not of it. I was 35 years old and using art to process my story. By drawing a purple cow standing up, the golden light had awakened a desire to go beyond my past. Through drawing, right brain perception was revealing deeper insights. I used the golden drip to represent enlightenment from above. As I tried expressing what the enlightened mind would say to the herd, which represents our culture, my mind went blank. Struggling with writer's block, the phone rang. A man I'd only met weeks before was searching for his lost book, Power vs. Force by David Hawkins. The universe was responding in perfect timing. This book shared a map of consciousness that revealed a life-changing insight, something I'd not fully seen about myself. I was living life below the line of balance and courage. The chakra system relates to the 7 levels of consciousness, and I was in the red to green zone below, from the heart, which is green, to red. Yet I had to break out of my own self-made negativity. Humanity is programmed in that first 7 years in the red chakra, where the identity forms into our unique sense of individual self. From green to violet, I saw enlightenment in the above aspect. It reminded me of a story from John chapter 3, where religious leader Nicodemus asked Jesus about spiritual life. Jesus said, "Truly I say unto you, until you are born again, you cannot enter the kingdom of heaven." This meant going beyond the ego's red to green default network loop. From the heart up, you'll see in this picture, awareness is neutral from green to violet. And from green, the colour of nature, balance and courage was key to going beyond the loop. The map of consciousness on the next page reveals everyone's default loop. And this is the Hawkins map of consciousness. And you can see from courage, this is where it's around 200 to 250. This is where there's a shift in consciousness out of the pride and anger and desire, which resonates at a lower frequency around 150, anger, pride 175. Humanity, it was progressing up into the areas of courage and willingness between 200 to 300. And just lately with COVID and lots of things that are taking place in the economy, you can see how a lot of this is being challenged now with the aspects of pride and desire, fear, grief, the unknown can also pull us back into these lower frequencies that are antagonistic and demanding and disappointed and tragic. So we can see we're being challenged by those lower chakras which pull us into that survival-based ego consciousness. And we can see in this chart here, I have the line of courage, which is neutral, balance, peace, healing. This is where the heart is, and it's also where the soul resides. And we can see it all begins from the first 7 years in the root chakra, and that relates to our family and tribal influence. So this is our programming, which is like a recorder in that first 7 years, recording away all the things that have happened in that default network. And this is why we fall back into these habits. And the sacral chakra, relating to sexuality and creativity, again, the same default network of how we perceive through the things that have happened to us are always there to pull us back into those default memories. And these are like vortex energy wheels. They're invisible to the naked eye. They've been proven by science to exist in the body. And they just relate to the way we tend to think from the heart into the red. And this is where we loop in the lower aspect of our story. I was at the age 35, and this is usually the age where most change comes upon people. It takes the first 29 years of being in the world, and we'll cover that later, before you're faced by the challenge of real change, generally speaking. Call it Saturn return. And you can see on the sixth chakra, the intuition, the third eye, relates to mind strength. And this seventh being the crown chakra, this is non-dual awareness from the age 49 onwards. And so these are every 7 years, these energy wheels are predominantly established. And they form the psychological and spiritual perceptions of how we see the world. So the heart is the center, balance point of the chakra system and has the potential of going beyond the loop. I could see how truthful speech in the fifth chakra relates to the throat in blue, rising into the sixth chakra, mind strength, indigo, and up into the seventh in pure awareness, violet. The awareness above transcends and balances the way humanity loops and is therefore controlled in the lower three chakras. And for anybody wanting to look at these pictures, you'll see when I use colour, all these 7 colours, none are more important or better than any other colour. But you can see that red does pull your attention in. This is where we generally tend to be pulled into that lower vibration. And violet tends to be a bit more expansive and aware, but let's not fall into the trap of seeing one better than the other. Let's just see this as a dance playing out within these 7 colours that are essential. We have them all in play. Humans tend to need about 29 years to establish their connection with their survival needs and the ego. I had taken many months to befriend and get to know my ego without making it an enemy. Note, each individual's personal situation and growth stage is unique to this. After seeing that everything below that line was my old conditioned identity that was looping, I was excited because that night I was letting go of my old story. As I lay in bed, facing the ceiling, I envisioned a giant ball of my own self-made conditioning. I could see the people pleaser, the misunderstood parts, the repeating of my parents' karma. It was like a series of stories that I had co-created with others, all of it my own creation. I held space for this giant ball of energy that represented my ego. Preparing to release it all to the universe, a silent voice said, "What about your belief in Jesus?" My analytic mind already knew I could not let go of a faith greater than myself. Yet I knew letting go of everything represented the truest knowing of all, beyond mere belief. As I felt the fear of losing my identity, I had reached a place where letting go had real value. Then the miraculous happened. After releasing everything to the universe, a rush of energy, a current of frequency flowed into my heart and roared in a circular vortex to the top of my head. A silent voice clearly said, "This is how a heart is meant to be." I was lying in a room full of grace. As the wind chimes danced and clashed as if in celebration, instinctively I said from my heart, "Be still," and the chimes stilled. A peace of unconditional love filled my heart and all around me. I lay in awe in what upon reflection was omnipresence, the presence of God being everywhere at the same time. That morning I arose to the sound of small birds chirping. A new morning, a new dawn. I was seeing the world through a new lens. Yet not one person could I share this with. I knew no one that could comprehend what had just happened. Yet now I had context, flow, and insight. I began talking in schools about the dangers of victim-perpetrator behaviour, sharing the importance of getting to know yourself. I was surprised by the standing ovation I received from teachers and the way primary-age students could relate to the purple cow standing up and connecting to an inner knowing above, yet able to integrate your default network that we all carry. I also changed the government's anti-bullying policy from bullying being an abuse of power to say bullying is a misuse of power, referring to the way people naturally see through their insecurities, which arise from the red, orange and yellow chakras of ego identity. At this level of consciousness, people naturally misuse their power. Meanwhile, back in my family's life, my eldest son began showing signs of mental illness. I had to stop speaking in schools and was in and out of mental institutions for 7 years, supporting the worst case of schizophrenia that doctors had seen in Australia. This forced his mother and I to eventually deal with our own underlying issues that previously we had no capacity to resolve. By speaking to them with love and wisdom, a clarity of discernment began healing our past, rebuilding the foundations for my son to heal and get to know himself again. I am now sharing this message with adults because children become what adults are, not what they teach. They integrate the seen and unseen elements of whatever patterns are playing out within their lives. Rebuilding parental foundations, young ones naturally learn through example. This framework is about being in the world but not caught in its old story. The right brain is aware from the heart. From green to violet, awareness, love, truth heals the lower 4 chakras of red to green conditioning, allowing all 7 colours to align. And you can see in that picture that power relates to the holistic aspects of ourselves, and force in the below relates to the fragmented parts of our personality, integrating with the more holistic aspects of clarity and awareness. The heart sends a signal to the brain even before we see danger. Instinctively, we are wired for survival, forming in the first 7 years of our subconscious programming in red. This is where our default network interprets subjective reality in the lower field. So it's interesting to note this really does capture the perception of how we see life in that first 7 years. And so from the heart, however, where the soul resides, a blue indigo violet, a beautiful internal victory, is already yours. And so in this picture we see that we are already in this space of awareness. Yet what it is that we are conditioned with, of course, is coming through the first 2 lots of chakras mostly, where we form our perceptions of life. So let's explore as we harmonise the human condition below with the love and wisdom above, allowing these two apparent opposites to be one universal song. So what is 3Omni? 3Omni is a framework that allows you to see life's challenges in a new way. You come out of repeating the same emotional patterns where you give your power away. These three aspects represent our potential: omnipresence, awareness; omniscience, knowledge; and omnipotence, how knowledge is applied. The way people gain knowledge and apply it loops in the lower three chakras below. This is why most don't know how to stop, breathe, contemplate, and begin healing their lives. The awareness from green to violet provides a beautiful internal victory that can heal old emotional wounds that tend to repeat in red, obviously in orange, yesterday in yellow. This is where objective truth can see subjective realities in a whole new way. When all three wheels turn, we enter a golden age, as all seven colours integrate and align, where objective truth sees our subjective realities, which are in our default loop. Example: you have unresolved emotion in your red zone. You stop and breathe for as long as it takes for a green to violet insight to see and heal this situation with clarity. It's a story, and you've given that story time to be seen. And just by seeing it, the entity itself is falling away because you are what is real in that scene. Your GV, green to violet, therefore is your greatest value, as it does not repeat the same default network loop. By tending to your own inner garden, green to violet is that calm place within that can see your own unconscious weeds. A garden infers walls, and walls infer discernment. The reason we carry weeds in our garden is due to our lack of knowing this garden. With love and wisdom, the heavenly drip of discernment, respect, inspiration, purity, DRIP, can transcend and integrate with those old program realities on earth. Nice move. Green to violet awareness gives us the space to stop and see where our own unproductive default network loops in the lower chakras. This picture shows how old illusions can now transmute into new behaviours and even fall away. So the first picture shows from red to green where we loop. The second picture is insight outside the propaganda. We can see outside the narrative from green to violet. In that one moment, there we can reintegrate the knowledge, where that knowledge of that moment of awareness can reset the old computer from violet all the way down to the red. So all seven colours align there. All the great teachers like Buddha and Christ spoke of a kingdom relating to this timeless awareness, something you could not see with your eyes. People would not say, "Look, here it is," or "There it is," because omnipresence is everywhere and nowhere. When heaven meets earth, the red chakra of identity stops looping in its own illusion. The world's love is ego-based, red to green. Real love, green to violet, listens, L, without prejudice. O, observes ego tendencies without judgment. V, voices its approval with honest encouragement. And E, effortlessly sees the mind viruses plaguing society from false beliefs. Now, the reason why I put that there is because the 5 Languages of Love that was written by Gary Chapman, he even said himself after writing that book, he realised that those 5 aspects of love, even they weren't real love, because they are displays of egoic love. So we're talking about real love here. Without true love, we don't know how to truly live. Live, spelt backwards, spells evil. Evil has taken over the world today because we love our red to green default network more. Conditioned by layers of your own personal reality, your perceptions may seem true at one level of analysis. However, when looked at through the lens of awareness, truth sees, without your old programming, with renewed clarity. Tully means flood or peace. My first insight into this message came to me in the same form of the flood that covered the earth in the time of Noah. So enormous, this vision swept away everything that lay before it, leaving behind 1 billion shards of light that glistened into eternity, clearing away the TV programming, the tell-lie visions that capture the human condition. The capacity to now face the complexity of our insecure ego is now upon us. Let's explore the 7-colour framework from green, the colour of nature. We balance and discover our fullest potential moving forward. Humans are influenced in their early years by the programming within culture. For these systems to function, they require hierarchical control in order to organise and serve humanity. And you see in this triangle, I have from violet down to red, the triangle at the top where the elite and the indigo hypnosis, that's the third eye. The blue communication is propaganda, the heart is conditioned, the yellow personality, the orange indoctrination, and red is programming. This is the world we're in, where service to self is egotistic, service to others is beyond ego. For these two opposites to harmonise, we must go beyond a triangle that has captivated the human psyche. This represents the human story, in that it creates a victim, perpetrator, rescuer narrative, caught in its own loop. So how do we come out of this hypnotic trance? When awareness guides intuition, based on personal honesty, it allows truth to speak to old false realities that normally deceive us. The entire triangle is reborn. And we see in this picture, now instead of the elite, we just have pure awareness and wisdom. Instead of hypnosis, we have intuition. Instead of propaganda, we have honesty. Instead of being conditioned from the heart, we have love and balance. Instead of the old ego personality, we have real esteem. Instead of indoctrination, we are creative, and we still feel that emotion as well. And programming is replaced just by the culture, and the tribe are now healthy in the red. The way we interpret human history limits our capacity to envisage a new future. Due to truth living outside this taught reality, 3Omni helps you see anew. The first 7 years of our life in red relates to the identity being a separate self. The orange chakra relates to creativity and emotion, and the yellow to personal willpower. This has created a crisis in consciousness due to our lack of heart connection in peace and balance. From here we naturally rise into the realm of green to violet awareness. 3Omni helps you see the way our identity creates its own personal reality. This personality creates patterns of perception and emotional responses that make a home within us. Once normalised, you're often the last one to notice it. So cleverly hidden, yet when you see yourself being caught in the propaganda of the world, 3Omni brings you back to green, to balance and inner peace. From here you're able to see where false beliefs are unconsciously looping below. By going beyond the typical teacher-student approach, we make these discoveries together. As this has no value unless you truly are the one wanting to access it. The Mu is awareness and Ment is mind. When Mu joins with Ment, we move beyond an old loopy narrative. Once Mu stood up from herd programming, truth exposed reality in that one eternal moment. In this one moment you can see why humanity is treated like cattle that follow the herd. You see why the world has been asleep. And you can see in this picture, I just simply have awareness as the purple cow, And when that pure awareness comes into the reality of our herd where we live, this is where we become empowered in the herd. A powerful community, a powerful family, because that awareness only has value when it's in our connection from above and transforms the entire way we perceive and treat one another. So we have truth coming into our reality as one living entity. Above a governed mind, you see what is meant by awareness and truth. This Mu empowers the human heart in the twinkle of an eye. From green to violet, all 7 virtues align to break us free of an old trance. And I've got the Star of David here, which you'll see later doesn't actually exist, it's a hexagram. But I've transformed the hexagram symbol out of its old shape, and I've simply replaced it with the 7 aspects of love. So love in the center. From green to violet, we tap into the unconditional love, where peace is beyond the egoic default network. So green to violet in the twinkle of an eye is what transcends us out of the old hexagram. And from this we get humility and joy and gratitude naturally in service, with real compassion coming from that upper dimension, not through the story of our default network. Before the complete technological alienation of a society governs the ment of our future, one simple move changes everything. We initiate 1,000 years of peace. Nice move. And so the golden age unfolds when we have the courage and inner balance to see the illusion and push this button together. Every other movement fails to bear fruit, as nothing new can arise from an unconscious loop that is essentially already dead. And so I've got a link to a video for 7 to 11-year-olds to watch. It's designed for homeschooling, for a parent that would need to show they can hold space for the framework. When adults integrate the Mu, they become qualified to guide young ones towards their own discoveries, as you can only live the message, not teach it. In this next chapter, the movement Thinking Outside the Box, we explore seeing from the solution itself. This is your introductory phase. To align, let's first process our conditioning below that line of courage and inner balance. Here's the example of what you would see from a world that was influenced by that loop. I would see people avoiding honest communication, which relates to the 5th chakra in blue. Caught in a loop, they can't stop to breathe and listen with awareness. I see masculine and feminine imbalance with no comprehension of the hidden propaganda behind it. I see the way people unconsciously follow the mainstream media without questioning it. I see people avoiding controversial subjects due to fear and conflict. I see people sharing their beliefs without the capacity to truly listen with balance. I see how people are challenged to look at their own programming as they act and react from the same conditioned loop. Take a moment to reflect and write on when you have acted or reacted from below the line of balance and courage. How did this affect the perception of the situation? This helps you recognize and overcome the unproductive aspects of your own conditioning below. So in conclusion to chapter 1 now, we're going to be allowing 30 days to explore the lower aspect where the main shift occurs in the blue chakra, where we see the importance of authentic communication, where the blue chakra is of a higher frequency than anything that arises from the old identity. And we can see the lotus flower produces 4 petals in that first 7 years, which relates to basic form identity. How we see ourselves in that first 7 years sets us up for the next chakra. That invisible energy wheel is going into creativity and more emotional responses. And this is where 6 petals open up, which relates to the number of man, which we'll be exploring later. And that opens in the next set of 7 years from age 14 to 21, where we're experiencing the intellect, and who we think we are within society has 10 petals open up. And it's only until we access the balance within, where the 12 petals open up, and this is where we're tapping into heaven and earth consciousness, to initiate into the blue chakra, the most powerful chakra being truthful speech, from an honesty that is transcended of the lower field from red to green. The blue chakra has 16 petals. The 6 being the number of man that is caught in a loop is now accessing that one aspect that is tapping into the 7, which is like an elevator ride. From the heart up to the violet is where we access the intuition, the third eye. It is where we open to the 96 petals. When we add up all the petals from red to indigo, we get 144, and in the violet we have 1000, which relates to the heaven on earth integration. The 144,000 lotus petals that open humanity to their potential. And so in conclusion now, we're going to write down, what does life look, sound and feel like in that default loop where everybody lives? Most people are trying to access the life of their dreams, but they want to bring through their old default loop, which is like winning the world and losing your soul. Click on the exercise book below this video, and we're going to spend 30 days exploring a paradigm that has the human condition caught in a loop. And by sitting in it, we are preparing ourselves to transmute the exact nature of something that most people avoid. And if you'd like to do the 60-day thinking outside the box move, join and collaborate with us as we move towards the third stage, where the 369 invites you to the solution, the golden age. I look forward to seeing you in Chapter 2. For private coaching sessions, email 3omnify@gmail.com, and let's see if we're the right match. And go to 3omni.life and click on About to find out more, or grab a t-shirt. This is Television, signing out.